So I recently did a video on K2, and it sparked a lot of interest, to say the least. Bambi Abel gave us some really good information on this. Not only her personal story, but some good logic, some very common logic among informed folks. But also you see some logical progression with Bambi as well. And in addition, she gave us some great citations. I'm going to quote some of this information because, again, the logic behind this is, I think, critical. First of all, her point was, look, we're headed towards big guns like PCSK9s, dropping some of the old standard stuff like niacin and even statins. I agree with you, Bambi. I have not used a lot of PCSK9s. I've been able to get most of what I need through proper management of insulin resistance and statins and some of the other medications. There have been a couple of times when we needed to go the PCSK9 route, but again, we tend to overdo the latest, greatest, and most costly. Bambi then goes on to say, look, perhaps MKs are not the answer. MKs in this case meaning menaquinones in MK-7, 8, 9. The subgroups of vitamin K2. Perhaps they're not the answer, might not be an answer. However, they are a non-toxic idea. So let's go back and look at that, and look at some of Bambi's citations, and I think she made a good point. Well, the first one is from Nutrients, October of 2015. It's looking at the first question. The first question is, does vitamin K2 actually, or do the K2 vitamins actually decrease calcification in coronary arteries? Again, you can look this citation up. It's in Bambi's comments. I'll repeat it as well in the explanation around this video. But it's Vossen, V-O-S-S-E-N, L-M, and Associates in Nutrients magazine of October of 2015. The bottom line was they looked at coronary artery calcification and Agatston score. Now, they really didn't get too deep into the results there, but that's okay. There are other studies that look at the actual results. This one happened in a murine model. That means a mouse model. So in Nutrients magazine in August, 3 months before, they looked at mice and said, there's no question, MKs, 7, 8, and 9, I think, did decrease calcification, cardiovascular calcification, at least in mice. And that's Scheiber, S-C-H-E-I-B-E-R, Nutrients magazine, August of 2015. So now they went on to say it didn't decrease hypertension. It did not decrease the breakdown of elastin fibers, but it did, and it didn't say, well, does that decrease in calcification result in a decreased cardiovascular event rate? All critical questions. And does that translate over to humans? Again, each study, there's a reason why most studies say further research is indicated, because no study answers every question. Bambi gave us another citation, again, a very appropriate and good one. And this one has to do with MK-7, 8, and 9, and impact on the incidence of coronary disease. This is Nutritional Metabolism, Cardiovascular Disease of 2009. This is an old study. And I think this study is actually what raised a lot of the interest in this area. A high menaquinone intake reduces the incidence of coronary heart disease. So basically what they're saying is, yes, they did look at this, and it was a large study. It was from the Prospect EPIC cohort, 16,000 women between 1993 and 97, aged 49 to 70 years. They did see some decrease in the rate of cardiovascular disease with increased, again, MKs 7, 8, and 9. So that should have settled it, right? Very strong evidence you get a decrease in heart attack and stroke from ingesting K2. Well, not so fast. If you look at the hazard ratio was 0.91. If it's less than 1, then it's decreasing risk, or it's inversely proportional to cardiovascular risk. That would be the ingestion of K2. If it's greater than 1, it would be increasing these women's risk for cardiovascular events. Now, let's look at the next item, though, the 95% confidence intervals. They actually went from 0.85 to 1.0. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means if you're looking at this, what's the probability that this could have happened at random? And the answer is it actually could have happened as just a random event, the whole study results. But now, why is that? There are a whole bunch of reasons. The most common reason for these, though, is that the study effect itself may have been little enough to where you could not rule this out from a random event. In other words, maybe a weak study signal. Or another way of saying this, maybe MK7, 8, and 9 ingestion do help. But if they do, it appears that, at least from the study results that we just looked at, that it helps very little. So here, back to Bambi. Back to Bambi Abel's comments and logic. So then she goes on to say, look, I've been continuing to read about this, and I'm beginning to actually wonder, does decreasing calcium in a stable plaque actually decrease the stability of that stable plaque? In other words, is calcium like mortar? John Lorscheider was strong in that area. He gave us a couple of good citations there. And then after considering that, Bambi goes on to say, you know what? I did some research in this area. You know, the prudent course would probably be to let sleeping dogs lie. In other words, if we're really that focused on pulling calcium out of our stable plaque, maybe we should let sleeping dogs lie. So again, there's a long putt between looking at the evidence and saying, yes, K2 does decrease calcium, and decreasing calcium in stable plaque is a good thing to do. And it's going to decrease heart attack and stroke. So I would agree with you, Bambi. I originally started with the same logic. You know, why would it hurt? It's probably non-toxic. Then as I started to look at some of John's information, some of this issue about plaque stability and calcium, said, you know, maybe we ought to let sleeping dogs lie. In case you don't recognize this is my more overriding concern. And that is, bottom line is, the vast majority of us are fiddling while Rome burns. We may find some good things with K2. However, the vast majority of patients that I see coming in have significant inflammation of their arteries going on right now, and they're ignoring it. They're focusing on supplements like K2, which is not totally proven yet. Meanwhile, they've got high insulin values. Many of them have high blood sugar values, and they've never really checked it. At most, they've checked fasting glucose or hemoglobin A1C, and are, typically will have a 5.7, 5.8 on hemoglobin A1C and think that they're okay. No, you're not. You're fiddling while Rome burns. even patients with a lot of patients with normal sugars still have maintained those normal sugar values by overworking their pancreas, putting out way too much insulin, and insulin in and of itself is an inflammatory factor. So again, I would say if we're focusing on things like K2 and some of these other supplements, but we're ignoring our blood glucose, our insulin values, we're fiddling while Rome burns. Thank you.